Hello, this is RICKY, the YouTube Tech Guy. Hey guys, so today's episode of Check Out the Tech is all about benchmark testing. And we're going to be benchmark testing the new Samsung Galaxy S22 Ultra and its new processor, the Snapdragon 8 Gen 1. Now, we're going to be comparing it to two processors that came out last year that were pretty high-end themselves, and that is the Snapdragon 888 and the Google Tensor processor. So we'll see how it compares on CPU, GPU, and overall scores, and see which one is the best and if it's really worth the difference. All right, guys, so let's get started by checking out what's under the hood. Over here, we do have the Snapdragon 8 Gen 1, Snapdragon 888, and Google Tensor processor. Now, full disclosure, in terms of RAM, these two both have 12 gigs of RAM, and this one has 6, so it is going to be less on the RAM. The only one that might come into a factor is the AnTuTu benchmark, which tests out everything about the phone. But without further ado, let's get started on the 3D Mark test. Now, we have run this test a couple of times, so we are going to see which one is going to reign supreme overall, but we'll give you the average test if these specific ones while on camera are way off from the norm. Okay, so this is what we've been seeing for the most part for 3D Mark around this kind of vicinity, around the 7000 series for the S22 Ultra. Overall, the graphics performance is going to be a step up from last year's model, which ran more about 5700. And we did see that when it came to the GPU, the Tensor processor did do better on graphics than the Adreno series from Snapdragon. So overall, this is pretty much in line with what we've been seeing. However, remember, this is not the overclocked version, so that is going to be a higher version that we'll see in the next few days. Then we have the Geekbench test. Now, Geekbench is going to test out the CPU performance to see just how it is overall in comparison. Now, on CPUs here, you can see that they have a little bit of a difference. So the Snapdragon typically does one really fast processor, so we should technically see a single core that's higher as it goes 3 gigahertz and 2.84, whereas this one actually for the Tensor processor does run with a 2.82 core system. It's going to be interesting to see how they do overall. Now, in terms of multi-cores, you can see the breakdown from there on after, but a little bit of a difference. Curious to see how it goes in comparison by having one more higher core instead of 3 mid cores. All right, and the CPU finished. And as you can tell, when it's not overclocked, we have seen that really there's not too much of a difference in the processor. We've actually seen this one hit 12 a couple of times as well. And this one is just continued to stay when not overclocked around the same kind. So not too much of a difference here, but still a bump up to say the least. And this one though, unfortunately, the Tensor processor, at least in CPU level, it is not computing as good as the Snapdragon is. It just does not do as well when it comes to graphics performance. It does definitely hold up, even beating the 888. But overall, when it comes to CPU performance, it looks like, at least for now, Snapdragon still has a leg up. Now, before we do start our last AnTuTu one, I'm just going to clear out everything just to make sure that nothing is running in the background, everything's set even across the board, to make sure that that happens again after running those two apps. All right, and now we're going to test it out and see how it does. So just to let you know, this has happened once before when testing. It's run every time since, but sometimes the S22 Ultra has just suddenly crashed on using the app. It usually runs the second time though, so just full disclosure that happened. All right, and there we have it. So a little bit different from what we've been getting for the most part. We typically got around 81,000 for the most part when it's not overclocked for the S22 Ultra. So this one went to 85. 73 is around, we get in the 70s for the most part, early 70s. So that falls in line. This one actually did a little bit worse. Last time it was in the 60s. Now it did give me a warning that apparently I have 19% storage left, and that might have affected it if it's under 25. So full caveat to that part for the Pixel. Where it really seemed to struggle in is the memory, which I do believe, if I'm not mistaken off the top of my head, it does use a slightly slower memory in comparison to Samsung's memory. So that is possibly why it got even a lower score than the S21 FE. Overall, in terms of performance between these two, the UX is actually so close that this one actually even beat it in this case scenario. Memory, this one did do better overall in terms of speed. Definitely better in the GPU and a good amount better in the CPU. So overall, is the S21 Ultra with the Snapdragon 8 Gen 1 processor much better compared to last year's models and last year's top processors? Yeah, it's a pretty good step up from it. And I will say that it's definitely going to be even more of a step up if you do see our next video, which is how to overclock the S22 Ultra if you do want to even hit higher maximum speeds and game even to a fuller extent than it does come out of the box. All right, guys, hopefully you did like this video. If you did, please give a like, thumbs up down below. This has been RICKY, the YouTube Tech Guy.